What's happening, guys? We have some new updates to the Stokastic Sims tool. So in this video, I want to walk you through what those updates are. And then in addition, we get a lot of questions about how to customize your lineups in the Sims and make them a little bit more fit to the lineups that you want to play. So I'll be going over some of the filters that you could use to make some of those customizations to your lineups in this video as well. If you find this helpful, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign up for our Stokastic Sims Tools, if you're not already an existing subscriber, there are links down below in the YouTube description box. But let's go ahead and look at the Sims tool right now. I've already built out a bunch of lineups in the contest generator. I've simulated them all out. And what we're going to look at now is just how to customize some of those lineups that have been built. So one of the new features we have here is the ability to set a certain number of uniques to your lineups. So if you aren't familiar with what a unique is, it's going to make it so that any lineups that you build are going to have a certain number of players that are different from any pre-existing lineups. So if you were to set in here, say, 3 uniques, then it would make it so that every lineup that is favorited after a previous lineup that's already been favored has to have at least 3 players that are different from any previous lineup that's been set. That's going to make your lineups more unique from each other, but also potentially diversify your player pool, diversify the kind of lineups that you're built. And I'll give you guys an example right here. So this is using projections for a slate a couple days in advance of when it's actually going to be played. And you'll see here that we've got Trey Sermon showing up in a bunch of lineups. Jonathan Taylor for this particular slate is questionable to play, and we have him marked out in our data. So Trey Sermon is showing up as one of the best overall plays on the slate, and as a result, he's in 76% of my top lineups. So if I go back to the lineups page here, and let's instead set it to 6 uniques. We'll just be really aggressive with this, but it's to prove a point. If we set it to 6 uniques, now what's going to end up happening when we re-favorite these top 150 lineups is we are now going to have a lot more diversified sort of lineups because we are making it so that there can't be too many of the same players in the similar lineup. So now if you go back to the exposures, you'll see that as a result, Trey Sermon's ownership, which was north of 70% before, he's still our most rostered player on the slate, but now it's 30% as opposed to that north of 70% mark. So that's one way that you could customize some of your lineups, and you could set the uniques anywhere from 0 to 8. If you don't want to use the uniques, you certainly don't have to. You could leave it at 0. So let's go back. We'll reset this to 0, and we'll go back to showing some of the other updates in the Sims tool. One of the other ones is the ROI boost, where nothing's changed with how the ROI boost function itself works, but now we have it a little bit easier to find individual players because instead of everybody being grouped together just in one list of all the players, it's now sortable by position. So you could go through here and you could see all the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight end, flex, and whatnot. And you can now individually go through each position and make some boosts. It's just going to make it easier to sort the players. And if you guys want a refresher on how the boosts work, anytime that you change the ROI of an individual player, any lineup that they are in the contest generator in the Sims, they're going to be getting that ROI boost. So if we went and we did a negative 15% boost to Trey Sermon, and then we press boost ROI, and then we go to the top 150 lineups here, you'll see that every lineup with Trey Sermon in it now is a negative 15% ROI boost. And remember, we turned off the uniques, and I did that intentionally here just to show what the impact is of some of those ROI boosts. And even without any of the unique selected, just because we did that ROI downgrade to Trey Sermon, he is now in 62% of lineups as opposed to that 70+% mark from before. And if you ever want to clear your ROI boost, just simply click clear boost, and that'll set any boost that you change back to 0. Then click boost ROI, and then you are going to have to go back, unfavor your top lineups, and then refavorite them, because that is how you're going to reselect your top lineups after you've made any kind of those alterations. Now, another thing that I want to go over with you guys, because it's something that I don't think a lot of people are using, but it is something that we'll see questions about. Like, I don't want these specific types of lineups. Say, people don't want to play triple stacks. So one thing you could do is if you want to go into your filters, you could go and you could go stack type, and then you could click does not contain. And then if you were to go and type in a 3 here, this would filter out any of those QB plus 3 lineups. So now if you were to favorite your top 150 lineups, it would no longer include any of those lineups that have a triple stack in it, but you could also do the inverse as well. So if you wanted to do something like only play lineups that are single stacks, then you can go in here and you can type in QB +1. And now what this is going to do is it could filter your lineups that it will only show the top single stack lineups. So if you're somebody who wants to have stacks in all of your lineups, we only want it to be a QB with one of his pass catchers. That is another way that you could go about filtering your lineups and just finding the lineups that you want to play. Now, one other filter I want to go over with you guys, because something else that does come up quite a bit is people say not wanting to play certain quarterbacks with a certain running back that might show up in the Sims. And one that I think makes sense for this particular slate is Brock Purdy is projecting as one of the top overall quarterbacks on the slate. Jordan Mason is projecting as one of the top overall running backs. But Jordan Mason isn't exactly a prolific pass catching back. So while the Sims may identify some really good lineups that have Brock Purdy with Jordan Mason, I understand there are going to be people that don't want to play Brock Purdy with Jordan Mason. So here's something you could do. We'll favorite our top 150 lineups without making any alterations here. And now in filters, let's say lineup contains Purdy. Add filter. End lineup contains Mason. And now what's going to happen is all of the lineups that have both Brock Purdy and Jordan Mason are going to appear here on the screen. So if you wanted to, you could unselect all of these lineups and you can make it so that you no longer have any favorited lineups with Brock Purdy and Jordan Mason in them. That'll make it so that your lineups don't have these two combined together. And then you could go back to the lineup page and you could select some individual lineups that you do like, that whatever lineups you might want to play, whether it's lineups that have Brock Purdy with another particular player, but maybe don't have Jordan Mason, which you could also make a filter for. So you could say lineup contains Purdy and lineup contains Mason, but instead you could do something like lineup contains Purdy, but does not contain Mason. And then you could maybe say, and the lineup contains Deebo Samuel. So if you still want that exposure to Brock Purdy and the 49ers, but you just don't want it to be Jordan Mason stacks, now you can go in here and you could select lineups that have Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel, but don't have Jordan Mason. You can do that with any kind of combination of players. So just other ways to use the filters in here to identify the lineups that it is that you guys want to play. If you have any further questions about this, let me know down below in the YouTube description box, or any Stokastic membership does come with access to our Discord channel. You could ask myself, the devs, any questions you have about the tools. We do have an active Discord channel. So other than that, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you like the new updates. If you have any other suggestions that you'd like to see, you can just ask our devs or myself in our Discord channel, because we are making these tools for you. And this is one of the reasons we made some of these updates, because it was something that was requested by our users. So any of those kinds of requests, let us know in the Discord channel. Other than that, hope you guys are having a great football season and good luck with the rest of the year.